Hello, everybody. Welcome to HighSchoolOT.com and this HighSchoolOT webinar on the future of high school sports. I'm Nick Stevens, and we have a big panel here with us tonight to discuss where things are going, where things are right now, and what the future might hold after the pandemic for high school sports here in North Carolina. So I'm going to introduce our panel that we have here. Next to me in the middle, you see Deran. He is the athletic director for Wake County Public Schools. On the other side of the screen at the top, Homar Ramirez. He is the executive director of the North Carolina Independent Schools Athletic Association. That's hard to get out. Que Tucker is below me. She is the commissioner of the North Carolina High School Athletic Association. And then Tod Morgan is on the bottom next to Que. Tod is the principal at Jones Senior High School and a member of the NCHSAA Board of Directors. He's also been a teacher, coach, athletic director at a quarter of the high schools. Is that right, Tod?
Just a few.
A bunch of them. So he brings a perspective from lots of different areas and different school sizes. So appreciate everybody joining us here tonight. I think this is an important discussion to have as we go forward here through the pandemic and hopefully get to the other side of it soon. I want to start, Homar, with you. The NCISAA, you guys started back in September with sports. Football started later on in September. You're now into the playoffs for many of your fall sports. How has the fall season gone?
Well, Nick, thanks for letting us join you. And it's been a challenge, right? Just like everybody else for the last 8 months, we've been learning how to coexist with a virus. Our schools have been in session since August, and it's not been without challenges or hiccups or some bumps in the roads, but a lot of credit to everybody for working hard on protocols, and emphasis on student safety, and again making all the concessions necessary to get these kids out competing again. So it's gone well. We're grateful that we made the push, and we're excited that we're seeing some of the dividends pay off.
Que, the NCHSAA is preparing for volleyball and cross-country regular seasons, practices and tryouts anyway, to start next week on Wednesday. How confident do you guys feel at the NCHSAA that everything's ready to go here for those two sports?
Well, let me say we're cautiously optimistic, cautiously, anticipating the start on Wednesday. We are excited that we have at least arrived at this point, and we're just hopeful that as we move forward and we get to next Wednesday, that we will be able to have those tryouts and that things can get started. We certainly know that there are still some questions we need to answer as we get closer to that tryout period, and we plan to do that over the course of the next several days. But we're, as a staff, we're very, very excited, and the ADs and coaches that we've had a chance to talk to, Nick, over the last few weeks are really looking forward to it. I actually had a superintendent who is just so excited. She's one of our rural school superintendent, and she's just really excited just about the possibility of being able to allow these young people to be able to get back to what so many of them love to do.
Deran, I want to go to you next. Wake County is obviously the largest school district in the state. You guys started volleyball and cross country at the beginning of October. Since then, I think you've added basketball, cheerleading, and swimming and diving to the workout list anyway. How are things going in Wake County so far? I know obviously earlier this week there were the 3 isolated cases, but I was telling some people, I think that's probably a sign of things working the way they're supposed to, right? That things were discovered and mitigated.
Certainly. So things are going well. And again, thank you for having me and for allowing me to be part of this prestigious panel. Things are going well. We were really excited to have the opportunity to roll out the beginning of our optional workouts. Nick, we spoke a couple of weeks ago over at Green Hope in the shadow of one of the volleyball workouts. And the coaches are so excited to have the kids back on campus. And I think as we move forward, certainly as you referenced, we had a couple of cases of COVID that we dealt with earlier this week. But it was clear that our guidelines worked, and that the fact that we were able to mitigate any exposures because we followed our guidelines It is certainly a positive story that we didn't spiral into something that could have been more of a problem for more people. So kudos to the High School Athletic Association for their guidance and building the guidelines, and also to our health department and individuals that have worked hard to have a robust plan to begin activities and athletics for Wake County Public Schools.
So we go from the largest school district. We're going to talk to Tod here. Tod, you're at one of the smallest schools in North Carolina, Jones Senior High School in the eastern part of the state. You guys started workouts in September, I believe. How are things going there at Jones?
Right, yeah, and thank you again for letting me join tonight. Certainly, Nick, excited to be here. Serve as the principal at Jones Senior High School and also as the county athletic director for Jones County Public School System. And you're right, it is one of the smaller school systems or schools in the state. And but we were excited to have our kids back on campus. We don't necessarily offer as many sports as some of the larger schools, like the 4A schools in Wake County, but our kids love athletics just like the kids in Wake County do, and our coaches do as well. And so it's just great to have the kids have that opportunity to get back on campus, work in pods, work within the guidelines established by the association and our SMAC committee. And I think that's been really helpful in our coaches understanding if we'll follow these protocols, we'll have the opportunity to do this for a while and see where it goes. And we're obviously optimistic that we're going to get to play sports this year. And with the emphasis on safety, I think our protocols have been established since day one. When we opened the school year as a Plan B at our school system, and having kids in the building on Mondays and Tuesdays and Thursdays and Fridays with a different cohort. And then some kids are just virtual only. So I think protocols have been established from the academic side and then also with what we do with our student athletes as well. So just been great to have the kids back participating and doing something that they love.
One of the things I wanted to bring up to this group, the NFHS has put out some stuff from the University of Wisconsin, a study that shows that of 30,000 student athletes in Wisconsin during the month of September, I think there were less than 300 cases of COVID amongst that group, and only one of those cases was traced back to spreading during sports. I don't know who wants to take this, but is that a positive sign for high school athletics that we are seeing, these protocols that are in place? And I feel like everybody's following similar protocols across the country, it seems like, but that they're working. Q, you want to take that?
Well, I'll start. I think it is great whenever you have data that really backs up what we're trying to do. We know that these young people have been playing sports all summer long. And so they're going here, there, and everywhere. And so to have a study that basically says, sports is not really where a lot of these young people are maybe contacting the COVID, and that it's not spreading from in a communal type way. So I was excited to see that study. Now, it doesn't cause us to relax or think that we've got the market cornered or anything. But again, we know that so much of what we do is based on data. It's based on the metrics. And when Dr. McGuine and his folks are producing studies such as this and providing us with that data, I think it's very helpful as we deal with our administrators. And then I think as we deal with parents, but we continue to have that need to emphasize the importance of doing the right thing and making the right decisions.
Homar, does it kind of fall in line with what you guys have seen so far this fall in the NCISAA? I know, obviously, there have been some cases I know that we've heard about. There have been some schools that have had to stop playing for a little while and then start back up. But does the NFHS data that we're seeing out of Wisconsin, the University of Wisconsin data that we're seeing out of Wisconsin, does that kind of fall in line with what you guys are seeing anecdotally with the NCISAA?
Yeah, I would start, Nick, by saying that anytime you get data to back up and support the anecdotal stories is extremely helpful. And the COVID virus, when it came on the scene, there was a lot of unknowns. And you start talking about the myocarditis situation with the hearts. again, unknown, and we can walk down a path of concern. Now the data has given us an opportunity to reevaluate those initial concerns. So yeah, it's extremely helpful. And what we've seen in our association is schools having to go through experience with their protocols, with a positive test, to see that their contact tracing plans work. All those things are good. We all are here from an athletic background and perspective, but we all understand that the academic day is the most important component to all of this. And we do not want to be the group that causes academics to have to go into a virtual situation. So studies like what's going on in Wisconsin, other studies that you're getting through the CDC and through the Mayo Clinic, those are all helping us get back onto athletic fields.
Yeah, and you know, Nick, I'd just like to echo. I think it's great that the study helps us, but I also think it's great that what they're able to do, Homar is able to do with his group and their association with them playing, and us see how it works and how they're operating. Their protocols are working, and they're able to participate in sports. They're able to keep their fans safe. They're able to keep their student athletes and coaches safe, and officials. And so we're learning some through that process too, where we see them going through it and it's working. Okay, what's working well there, and then what can we make sure we're doing on our end so that we can be successful as well.
And Q, I imagine that you guys are in contact with other states too that are nearby, or even other parts of the country that have started.
Well, that's exactly right. And I was going to echo that. I was just on the phone today with Jerome Singleton down in South Carolina and just talking about some of the experiences that they've had and where they are right now. And they're looking towards starting their winter sports, their true winter sports. And so he was sharing with me some of the things that they've had to do, some of the hurdles they've had to jump. And, so it is good when you can talk with other states. And then it also is helpful that those states that are like us and have not been playing, that we've been able to share some of the things that we've done over the course of the fall to just try to make it and to try to share information with our schools to keep them encouraged and to keep our athletes hopeful. So sharing information is very crucial to what we try to do. And I think the NFHS has just done an awesome job of trying to provide resources and opportunities. And I know our ADs have taken advantage of roundtable discussions with other ADs from not only the surrounding states, but from states across the country. And that's been very beneficial. I've had the opportunity to sit in on several of those, and the information that they're sharing, I think, will go a long way towards helping our ADs and our administrators as they put things in place to begin practicing and playing.
Deran, were you about to say something? I didn't mean to cut you off.
Yeah, no, I would echo Commissioner Tucker's comments, and the North Carolina Athletic Directors Association has put together some great roundtable discussions where we've pulled in guests from across the nation, and it's just been a wealth of information from schools that have started, some that have not. And in addition, the support of the NCISAA, which is the National Interscholastic Athletic Administrators Association, and the support they're providing to school administrators, athletic administrators, in the form of resources to understand this virus, to understand how to appropriately restart athletics, and the safeguards that need to be in place. It's so many different organizations like the National Federation and the NCISAA working together, and folks like us at the school level and the district level working with our associations within the state to find ways and pathways forward to provide the opportunity for the participation opportunities that these kids just love and need. And we're excited that we're learning from others, and we're all in this together to make the best possible scenarios for our student athletes.
One of the things that comes up every time we do a story about resuming high school sports, I feel like, usually for people who aren't really invested in or not following high school sports closely, is why are we so focused on restarting high school sports right away when there's so many other things going on right now, even just getting kids back in school? Todd, I want to start with you on this one, but why are high school sports so important to not just, playing and being active, but to the educational side of high school for so many of these athletes?
Right. Well, certainly, from a lot of kids, that's sometimes the carrot that we have to dangle to get them to come to school or to remain in school enough to graduate and to take the classes and take their classes seriously enough to make sure they meet their GPA requirement and they pass enough classes. And so we know that there are student athletes that benefit just from that's the thing that helps them get across the finish line. Then we also know just all the benefits of it. They learn so many teamwork, and they learn how to handle success, how to handle failure, how to work with others, and all these things that they're going to need in life. They're all life skills, and they all just carry over. So when we talk about athletics, we talk about it being co-curricular, really not extracurricular activities, but co-curricular. We learn as much through our participation in athletics as we do sometimes in some of the classes that we take. And when I was a coach, I always talked to our student athletes about this is our classroom. The gym as a basketball coach was our classroom. When you come in there, we're focused on basketball just like it's a subject. And it was just an extension of our day. And that's why I think education-based athletics is so important to our young folks. A lot of us probably played when we were growing up, and we had those special relationships with those coaches who are still to this day, your mentor or your hero, a father figure. So there's so many aspects of it that I think we need to certainly give that opportunity to our student athletes if we can. And obviously we have to do it in a safe manner.
And Deran, high schools in Wake County are not back in person learning yet. I mean, were those discussions that you guys were having internally about, how do we bring back sports if we're not in school?
Yeah, I mean, certainly it was a large part of the conversation, and figuring out some of the other details along the way, it's still part of the conversation. We don't anticipate our students returning to high schools until at the earliest January 20th. And hopefully we're able to do that, and everything moves forward with a successful second semester of in-person learning. But certainly the challenges of when you're not on campus, it adds another level of transportation issues and timing and how to make sure the facility is prepared, because it's not prepared for the school day because we don't have 2,500 students walking through the hallways. So certainly a lot of those conversations about building the screenings and athletics, not being a guinea pig per se, but helping to set the standard for how we're going to screen and how we're going to bring our students safely back into campus with a smaller population in athletics than it is for the traditional student body. We're learning a lot from what we're doing that will be helpful. Has already been helpful this week when we transitioned some elementary school students back in, our K-3 students, and it's going to be helpful as we continue the progression of returning all of our students eventually back to in-person learning.
Q and Omar, I want to talk to you guys about what you're hearing from schools in your respective associations. What are their top concerns right now as we move into, for the NCHSAA, as we move into
part. It's in the academic realm too. Your budget is limited or cut a little bit in knowing that there's going to be probably some cuts coming. And so you have to be having those conversations with your teachers as well in terms of supplies that they need academically. So it's across the board, but athletically, certainly fiscal responsibility is something that's key on principals' mind, as we go into this.
Deran?
Yeah, so it's a huge concern, and we're looking for creative ways to help support the schools. And you hit the nail on the head at the beginning, Nick. Everything really is driven by gate revenue. As a school system, we provide very little financial support for the schools. We do, so we take care of some transportation costs, and then some other minimal things like rentals for swimming pools and things of that nature. But ultimately, schools have been self-sufficient, using their gate funds to fund their program, along with hand in hand with their booster clubs. And some schools are very blessed to have very active and very supportive booster clubs. But with 24 different high schools and many different communities with differing amounts of support and differing demographics and differing areas of where their students come from. So we may have a magnet school where their families don't live nearby the school, so it's harder to build some of that community support in some of those scenarios. So it certainly is a challenge, and I am so thankful for those booster clubs that are supported, because they're in need. And truthfully, it should be a situation where booster clubs are helping support the excess, not the necessities. But right now, certainly we're in a place where it's almost like they're going to have to help with some of the necessities. Now, I will tell you, the school district is looking for ways that we can support financially that we haven't in the past. We're having conversations about officials' costs and just running the numbers. It's a very, hundreds of thousands of dollars to pay for the officials for Wake County high schools. And so we're trying to find opportunities to help support the schools by picking up that cost, knowing that fan support and ticket sales will be limited. Some of the other unique ways, we've got some great athletic directors who work very well together and brainstorm those creative ideas of how to build that community support and build sponsorship opportunities for their booster clubs. One other thing that we are very lucky to have done just last year was in all of our gymnasiums and all of our stadiums, our high school gymnasiums and stadiums, we installed the PixelOT cameras that live stream all of our games that take place in those venues. So even though we know that there will be limited fan opportunity, if any, we know that our families, at least those contests that are held in our gymnasiums and in our stadiums, they'll be able to pay a fee to have a subscription so they can watch those games. And that really couldn't have happened at a better time. I know a lot of other districts are scrambling now to try to get those cameras installed and move forward with that opportunity. And those are the kind of creative things you have to do. And I'd be remiss if I didn't mention, we have a great partner with Wake County Schools, a group called National Amateur Sports, which is helping us build community partnerships and reaching out to some of those larger businesses, maybe not the small community businesses, but some of the larger businesses that may be looking for sponsorship opportunities to support all of the district schools. And so some of those creative ways are things that we have to do right now, knowing that through this year, and even into the future, this is not going to be an immediate bounce back. And we know the economy is not where everybody would hope it to be right now, and it's not going to be a quick recovery. So, on top of that, back in March and April, I meet with my athletic directors weekly via Zoom or Google Meets or whatever platform we're using at the time. And essentially then I said, hey, just no expenditures, just tighten your belts right now, because we don't know what the future holds. And that's really what's been, sometimes you may just have to go an extra year on a uniform rotation and do without some things and just really narrow down and focus on the necessities. We know we can have events if we have officials show up, the kids are there in uniforms, and we have a safe playing surface. If we have those things, we can have a contest. And really what it's about this year is all of the work and all of the effort of all of the people who are building the guidelines and paving the runway for athletics. It's about creating those opportunities for our kids to participate and to be involved in the activities that they love and that we know bring so much enrichment into their lives.
Homar, is this an issue that is this mainly focused on the public schools, or do the private schools have some of these same concerns economically? So, obviously, private schools have tuition that public schools don't. So do the private schools rely so much on fan attendance to fund their athletic department?
Well, Nick, good question. I think sometimes a misunderstanding is that independent or private schools have this tremendous wealth, and they don't. You have the upper echelon of schools, the 10, 15% of our schools that are blessed with resources and in a different economic realm. But then you have the other 80, 85% of our schools that their tuition rates are minimal. And then you start talking people costs. Then yes, they're relying on the gates and their concession stands to make ends meet for the athletic programs. So it's very much the same situation. Our schools, I can speak from the state association standpoint, right? We're running the fall championships and we don't have spectators. So now you're looking at costs. How are you going to fund from those expenses when you don't have those revenues? And when you used to have a venue for one day, and because of social distancing and doing the things you need to do for the protocols, that one event or those two events in one day now gets stretched out over 2 and 3 days. And so now you've exponentially increased costs. So as Deran said, it's being wise. It's being holding everything close to the vest as far as expenditures. Tod said it as well. Fiscal management is a huge component of what's going on in this COVID time. And we've, over the last 2 years, have been able to set aside a little bit of a rainy day fund. And we're grateful because it's pouring right now.
That's a good analogy. Q, this isn't the first major financial crisis that high school sports have had to weather, at least since I've been around here at HighSchoolOT. Back in 2008, there was another significant financial crisis then. Was there anything that the NCHSAA learned, that schools learned during that period of time, that can be applied to now to maybe keep us from going into a really bad situation?
Well, I think, obviously we have been very fortunate in terms of the boards of directors. And, I can't say enough about the vision of Charlie Adams back in 1991 when I joined the association. His vision was that we would establish an endowment, and that endowment, the monies would be invested over time, so that at some point in time, the interest from the endowment would be in position to be able to help our schools when it came to playoff times and they were unable to participate in the playoffs. And so his vision was that those dollars would be there to help a school that was unable to participate in our playoffs. And so as we've gone over time with the wise investments that our boards of directors have made and authorized, that in 2010, when Davis Whitfield came on board, we were at a point in time where we were able to take some of those dollars and begin to do some things other than just help our schools at playoff times. And so over the last 10 years, really, we have given back to our schools over $12 million. In fact, it's $12,800,000 and some $1,000 to the member schools. That for some schools that didn't get a really big check, they may say, well, yeah, I didn't get $12 million. But when you take that interest and you can spread it out amongst the member schools, we've been very blessed that we've been able to do that. And Nick, if you just think about this particular year and just trying to look at the formula that was in place, that our board has put in place to be able to give monies back, we were able, even this year in August, write checks that total $1,234,000 plus that our schools were able to receive from the invested dollars. Now, what they do with that money, we hope will help some as it relates to the PPEs that they have to have, that it will help some towards some of the equipment that they need to get going. And then we also are very sensitive to this whole idea that, well, this is a very tough year. We know that. And the association, we have to bring in dollars to operate. We have about 4 budgets that we will be presenting to our board in December for them to approve, probably all 4. And let's just see which one shakes out. But we bring in our dollars for our operating budget because we can't touch the principal. And then we use the interest to be able to help our schools. And so one of the challenges that we will issue to our board in December will be, what are some things that we can perhaps do on top of those things that we're already doing? What are some additional things that we may be able to do to financially help support our schools during this year? And I'll just share this with the group. One day I asked one of my staff members, I said, wonder what it would cost the association if we just said, okay, we're going to pay for all of the officials throughout the entire season. If we have a season, how much would that cost? Well, when they came back and laid that paper on my desk, I almost fainted. It was well over $6 million. And I was like, oh, well, I don't think we'd be able to do that. But we are thinking about some additional ways. We have the grant program going, and we hope our schools will take advantage of that. And then we'll continue to hope that the stock market will be kind to our investments so that we'll continue to be able to help our schools once we get at the end of the year. And, and I would also say, just as Deran was talking about, their partnership that reaches out to try to find those corporate partners that will help Wake County schools. We've been very fortunate. Karen DeHart in our office and her team have done a great job of reaching out to try to find some partners who embrace our vision and really want to help us. And we were just so excited when we were able to, reach out and join hands with Lowe's, who have jumped in and have really, embraced this idea of trying to help get our schools, our sports programs jump started. And some of the longtime partners we've had, they haven't jumped ship and they're still around. Wells Fargo, some of those folks who have been with us through thick and thin. They're still there, and we will continue to look for other partners who will be able to help us as we move forward.
You brought up the endowment. I think what a lot of people don't always understand about the endowment fund is that it's kind of like a retirement account. Like, you have the principal, the nest egg that you don't want to touch. You want to take the money that comes off of it in interest as the stock market goes up. It's an investment. And I think sometimes people look at it as, oh, well, it's a savings account, and they're two different things. So, people who have retirement accounts will probably understand that.
You're right about that, Nick. And I appreciate you saying that. People do not understand that. They think that we should just be able to walk down to the bank and just, withdraw this money and just write all these checks all the time. But it just doesn't work that way.
Well, I want to, the economy part is very important, but there's another really big issue I want to make sure we touch on before we run out of time tonight. And that's one that has been an issue for a few years nationally, and that's officiating. And I'm wondering if the pandemic might make that problem worse. There's been a shortage of officials nationwide. I think we've been kind of lucky in North Carolina for the most part that we haven't had too many of those issues. I know we had one with girls lacrosse around the Triangle area last year. But is there a concern about possibly having a shortage of officials due to the pandemic? Has that caused issues with recruiting or retention? Q, I'll start with you.
Okay, well, yes. Obviously, we are very concerned. We've been registering officials especially for the upcoming sports. And we're seeing that some of our numbers are down with volleyball officials. But on the flip side of that, we are excited about the fact that yesterday I was sitting at my desk and Melissa Knight, who works with Mark in the officiating area, came and laid a document on my desk, and it said that we have 340 some officials, new officials, who went through the NFHS database indicating that they want to be officials. And we have reached out to those 300 plus persons to try to do everything we can to get them registered so that they can officiate the sports that they have indicated they have an interest in. So that's a good thing. But we also know that you temper that, and you have to balance it with the understanding that you still have those officials who had reached an age where they were contemplating retiring anyway. And so with the COVID-19, their age perhaps, plus maybe some health issues that could have materialized just with over time, it's caused some of those people to go ahead and decide that we're going to get out of officiating. So I am still concerned that it can be a problem, but we're trying to aggressively address it. We've done some things with the lacrosse officials to try to see if lacrosse men and women's officials can work together. They're two different sports, two different sets of rules, but we've done some things in our credit Mark and Melissa with trying to do those things to kind of embrace the idea that, hey, you guys can call either sport. So we're looking forward to that and hope that that will make a difference. And we'll continue to beat the bushes and hope that some of these folks who maybe have been unemployed would have an interest perhaps in joining the ranks and becoming an official, which could then help supplement income until maybe they get back on their feet with a regular job. So we're trying in every way we can to try to shore up what we already have and hope that we don't lose that many.
Has the NCISAA had any issues in getting officials assigned to games? Have you had any issues in shortages?
Not right now. I mean, this fall season is obviously an abnormality with our friends in the public schools not playing at this time. So it's the shortage of officials we haven't seen, but over the last few years we have seen that transpire. And I enjoy working for Q and Mark on Friday nights as a football official, and in the 5 years that I've been here, you see the retention. That's where the concern is for me. You get younger officials in, and maybe it's a coach, maybe it's some players, maybe it's some fans that rub them the wrong way, or it's not what they signed up for. So, as Q mentioned, the aging out of the quality officials who've been really committed over the years, and you're replacing them with people who they don't stick at the level or at the rate that we need them to. So we're going to continue to work with our schools. We're going to continue to work with the sportsmanship. We're going to continue to help educate. And like Q said, we're going to beat the bushes to recruit because the NCHSAA does a tremendous job getting officials. And our schools work with those regional assigners. So the more officials in the pool, the better it is for our schools.
Todd and Deran, I want to ask you guys about this topic. I think this is one that has kind of been under the radar here, and that is club sports. Deran, you coached soccer for years. Todd, you coached basketball for years. Obviously, both of those sports are, very involved in the club scene. Club sports have been playing since late spring in North Carolina. They've been traveling to other states and playing. There have been events here. Is there a concern that club sports might be eating into high school sports right now because of the pandemic, and they're able to play and there's more restrictions on high school sports?
Deran, you want to start?
Sure. So certainly we understand that club sports and non-school sports have a place just alongside high school athletics and middle school athletics. So I don't think it's an either or. And the majority of the student athletes in our area, not all, but we're in a nice area where we have a lot of great clubs with some great coaches who do great things. And we also have the best of the best high school coaches in our district as well, and in schools outside of our district. So yes, we know that a lot of our student athletes looked for opportunities outside of the schools this summer, since we didn't begin off-season participation until October. But we know that we provide a quality product, and we know that the majority of our student athletes will come back. That there is a great pride in putting on your school name and putting on your mascot and your logo and playing for your school. And there is just a tremendous feeling of community whenever whether it's a Friday night football game or a Tuesday night volleyball game or a Saturday cross country race or whatever the case may be. Playing for your school means a lot to a lot of people. So we definitely work. A lot of our coaches work hand in hand. A lot of our coaches are club coaches and school coaches. So we certainly support the good things that the clubs do and the quality training and the quality competition that a lot of our student athletes receive when they take part in AAU and travel soccer and other organizations. But I think we do need to understand that we are education-based athletics. So we are different. We are different. There is a piece that will always be a little bit different. We have different levels of expectations for attendance in school, for academic achievement. We do believe that athletic participation is the number one dropout prevention program that there is. So while we know there will always be a place for club sports, and we welcome the student athletes that choose both, we offer something a little different, and we know that we will continue to. And I will say, even in this day and time, our coaches, while they may not have been participating in workouts one-on-one, at school sites or on campuses or on fields or courts this summer, they were still engaging with our student athletes virtually and taking care of them as people. And that's what our coaches really do. They wrap their arms around the kids in a metaphorical way to make sure that they have the support that they need, and they're helping grow those student athletes into the whole person, not just the competitive person.
Yeah, Deran hit it. I mean, he hit it out of the park. I think that's it. That's it. We can coexist, certainly, and a lot of our student athletes will play certainly and represent our school. They have a lot of pride, as Deran said, representing their community and representing their school, and especially in small rural areas where generations of the family may have gone through a Jones Senior High School. And so you're going to play for those Trojans because your dad played for them, your mom, your uncle, someone in the family, and you've heard about that for years. And so that's been a source of pride in our smaller rural communities, especially, but everywhere across our state. When you grow up, you're excited to wear those colors and play for that team and represent that school. And so I think that's a huge part of it. And then certainly we can coexist. The student athletes are going to participate in both. We know a lot of times they play with their friends in school, and then they also develop other friends with social media. They have friends all over the place, but they play with these club teams in AAU basketball and club soccer and baseball and different sports, lacrosse, and they have other friends who become really good friends. And so that's a neat aspect for them. We do understand that the college recruiting piece is tied a lot of times to their club involvement, just due to the nature of the way the NCHS or the NCAA recruiting has gone. Had a lot of players who went on to play in college, and a lot of them were seen because of playing AAU basketball and the exposure they had at an event where the college coach, I understand, can go and watch one weekend tournament and see a whole lot of talented players and observe and evaluate a lot of kids at one time versus coming to see my high school team play on a Tuesday or Friday night, which a lot of times is coexisting during their season as well. So it's not even necessarily an option for them to see them that way. So that's a piece that I do know that we can coexist. I think we've got some club coaches who, just like our high school coaches, really care about the kids and do put an emphasis on the academic piece, which I really have a lot of respect for those coaches. And like you said, like Deran said, some of our club coaches are also assistant coaches on our high school level, or maybe even head coaches on our high school level, maybe a different sport. But so education-based athletics, we're really about the whole child, developing the whole child into the young person they become and the success that they have, and the lessons they learn through athletics and education-based athletics, that carries on with them the rest of their lives. So I do think it's something that we can certainly coexist. I did coach a little bit of AAU basketball during the time when I was still a high school basketball coach. I didn't have any of my high school players on my team. They didn't want to go to that many practices with me, but it was a lot of fun coaching some other kids from other schools in our area and getting to kind of coach them in an AAU setting. That was a neat thing for me to do as well. So
that was where the high school recruiting happened, Q.
Yeah, no,
I had Eric Meaner on my team in AAU, and Eric played at Westover, and he was really good at VCU. He hit that floater to beat Duke. So if I could have had somebody, I would love to have had him at New Bern High, but he wasn't at New Bern High. So no recruiting here.
There's one more topic I want to get to, and then there are a couple questions. I want to get us done here in a few minutes, be respectful of everybody's time. But Q, I know last year or earlier this year, it was confirmed that there were 2 NCHSAA schools that were going to play 8-man football, and obviously they'd be playing against a lot of the NCISAA schools. I don't know if you can confirm this. I've heard there's a third one that's happened recently. I should have asked you before now. But I suspect that there will be more interest in that going forward. I don't know if you agree with that. Do you think that this pandemic might be a catalyst to start an 8-man football movement? And on top of that, a question for you and Homar both. Can you talk about the relationship between the NCHSAA and the NCISAA? Because I think a lot of people oftentimes assume that it's a contentious one, that it's private schools versus public schools, and I don't think that's the case.
Well, let me start by answering the 8-man football question. I know that Columbia High School and Mattamuskeet High School were the 2 schools that had reached out, and the board actually addressed their request to play 8-man football moving into this school year. And of course, the North Carolina School for the Deaf, which is a member of the High School Athletic Association, they're an independent member. They have played 8-man football for a number of years. But those are the only 2, Nick, that I have reached out to me and said, you know, we are definitely playing 8-man. And, you know, and so we embrace whatever our schools need to do to try to grow to 11-man football, if that is what they want to do. And as you know, and our panelists know, 8-man football is a big deal in some places, even in Texas, where football is king. But there's a 8-man football that thrives even in the state of Texas. So I think that this pandemic could cause some other schools to think about you know, going that route, going 8-man, especially if you were having trouble prior to the pandemic with getting, you know, athletes to come out and you know, and stick with 11-man football, that may be an option that opens up for some of our smaller schools. Not sure if that's something even that Jones Senior would be wanting to do. I know that, you know, they have had, you know, some issues in recent years just with numbers. I don't think it's that, you know, young people don't like playing football or they don't like playing 11-man football. Sometimes it's just the numbers and the fact that you just don't have enough of them who want to play. So it is fortunate that the independent league does have some schools that play 11-man, play 8-man football, and they were looking forward to playing some of those schools. So not sure if any of those schools did not play during the regular season for the independent league, that maybe their season will be a little bit later and will provide an option for several of those schools or those 2 schools that I am aware of.
Yeah, well, what we offered our member schools, we offered them an alternate season to the fall, and we did have some schools that and a couple that do play 8-man football that had chosen that. So there will be an opportunity. Nick, I want to quickly address the idea that there's some type of contentious relationship. Que Tucker has become a great friend of mine and a mentor, someone that I've leaned on for advice throughout not just the last 8 months, but the last few years, as we've been at our 6th year here at the association. Deran came and was a panel guest at our conference not this past year, but the year before, to impart wisdom on our athletic administrators and help them grow. I think what happens is that we have some overzealous people who take the recruiting word to a different level. I don't want to mislead anybody. There are coaches that cross boundaries. I will tell you that in the independent school world, when we learn of them, we address the matter, and we have record of that. So there are situations that present themselves that I think people will get fixated on or want to focus on. But as far as a working relationship, independent schools and private schools play public schools, vice versa. Having come from a different state where the public and private schools actually coexisted under one umbrella, it's a very healthy relationship. Competition is what gets things skewed, right? When you get a winner and a loser, that's where people sometimes misconstrue the facts. But it's healthy, it's positive, and I think it's very good.
And I echo what Homar said. We, our staff, I just about every year, either once or twice a year, we get together over a meal and just talk about things that are going on in both of our worlds, and then how they merge. And throughout the summer, Homar and I were talking almost every week or so. Just comparing notes and just trying to figure out what are we going to do, how are we going to open up, and those kinds of things. So, it is that idea, as he said, the word recruiting just moves things to a different level. But we know that even amongst our own membership, we have recruiting going on, and so we have to address that. But I've been really pleased with how we've been able to kind of share ideas and talk about those concerns. And if I ever hear of anything that a member school calls me about as it relates to perhaps recruiting, I pick up the phone, talk to Homar. He either makes a phone call, or in some instances, he tells me he makes a road trip. So it's been great.
Well, we are over time. If y'all don't mind, I do have two questions I really want to get to, and I appreciate you guys being with us tonight. One of them, Q, this might be a good one for you to answer. You may not have an answer for it. I don't even know if it's under the NCHSAA's purview. But there is a question here. Grades across the state are struggling. Are there any thoughts on academic eligibility relief in virtual world that would have a common direction across the state in regards to each LEA making their own decision?
Well, our board of directors meeting is scheduled for December 2nd and 3rd. That is not something that has come directly to me, but I can tell you I did hear today in another Zoom call where there was some concern about how students are struggling, and that the virtual setting is not good for many of our athletes. And maybe that's one of the repercussions of, as someone said earlier, is, I think it was Tod said, that athletics sometimes is that hook, is that carrot that we dangle out there for these young people, that if you don't do well or if you don't study, then you're not going to be able to play. And by virtue of the fact that we have not had athletics competition, that some schools have made the decision that perhaps they're not going to play, then those carrots are non-existent. But that will be a topic that our board, I'm sure, will address. As you know, we have an affiliate member representing the North Carolina Department of Public Instruction and the State Board of Education on our board. And so we will discuss that just to see if that is something that State Board of Education would obviously need to weigh in on, that if that were going to be something that we would be looking to waive or adjust. And
the NCHSAA has said that you're going to use predetermined brackets this year. Has there been a decision made on how that will work with predetermined subdivided brackets for football?
We have not settled on that. We have an idea of what we're going to do, but until we've had an opportunity to really share that with our ad hoc committee, with our football coaches, we don't have anything at this point that we will be able to share publicly. But we understand that you can't do predetermined brackets for subdivided playoffs. We do know that. So we're working towards how we will make that happen.
You're going to come announce it live on HighSchoolOT, right?
Absolutely.
Well, any closing remarks anybody wants to make about the future of high school sports and where we go from here? Deran, I think you said you had something you wanted to add to that, right?
Yeah, so we've spoken earlier, and you posed the question, kind of what were the biggest points of emphasis for high school sports going forward when the pandemic finally ends? And some of this we've already touched on, and even I've already said, but so many of our coaches have found ways during this pandemic to maintain and grow connections with our student athletes over the past 7, 8 months during the absence of athletics. And I've heard so many great stories from so many schools, and very proud of the way our Wake County coaches specifically have stepped up to support student athletes that they serve. Some great stories that I've been able to see on Twitter from Panther Creek, the Millbrook basketball program, and how they've come together and for causes of social justice and things of that nature, helping grow our student athletes' perspective and grow as people. But throughout the summer and fall, I've heard honest sentiment from so many of our dedicated and caring coaches that they just wanted to see their kids and work with them. It's not about the contest. It wasn't about the championships, but being able to provide some much needed social and emotional support for our student athletes. Over the past several weeks since we started on October 1, I've heard from many coaches and ADs who speak about the joy of opening the gym back up for volleyball, or seeing the cross country runners outside, or the cheerleaders entering the building and basketball, and just the joy that's returning to the student athletes when they return to campuses for the workouts. I heard from one of our longtime coaches and a former AD, LJ Hepp, left me a nice message. I haven't been able to connect with him one-on-one yet, but just his thanks for the work that's being done to bring back sports. So we know it's important, but my hope for this year and for the future seasons is that we don't lose sight of that focus. Certainly, we know that winning games, participating in the playoffs, the state championship events that the High School Athletic Association puts on as first-class events, they're all wonderful experiences, and they're goals to work towards, certainly, but only a handful of teams each year get to experience a state championship. So we need to remember and keep our focus that championships are a small part of the athletics picture. The relationships, experiences, mentoring, and guiding our student athletes towards being good people, like Tod said earlier, and Homar and Ms. Tucker have also said, it's making those positive contributions to society is where the greater outcome of athletics really lies. High school athletics is about the journey. It's not about the destination of state championships. So thank you for this opportunity to share tonight. And I think that if we can keep that focus on enjoying the journey and building our student athletes into productive citizens, then that's a great outcome from this terrible pandemic that we've had to endure and are continuing to endure.
Mm-hmm.
Ditto everything Deran just said, and I too thank you for this opportunity to share these few moments with these distinguished colleagues, and we appreciate being able to get the message out about high school athletics, whether it's on the independent side of things or the public side. We do appreciate it and hope that our listeners and viewers have learned something that will renew their appreciation for what we try to do through education-based athletics.
Well, we appreciate it. Deran Coe, Homar Ramirez, Que Tucker, Tod Morgan, thank you for joining us. Thank you for your expertise and insight. If you missed any part of this, you will be able to rewatch it on HighSchoolOT.com. It'll be up later tonight. And don't miss any of our future High School OT webinars. Make sure you subscribe to our email newsletter to get the details on those. That is, you can go to HighSchoolOT.com/email to get that. Thanks for everybody who joined us. Thanks for everybody who watched. And hopefully we'll be covering a lot more high school sporting events here in the very near future.